or past mowing. 352-629-2440. Gene is a proud United States veteran.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Listening to AIM Ocala Live. We know what that time it is. It's In the Garden with Ann Baldwin. As we just finished up with Mr. Shepherd November. Interesting name and interesting topic that I'm sure everybody can relate to or talk about or discuss or have a beer over or just bitch about or whatever you need to do to just say maybe the people around you need to work a little harder or you feel you're working too hard. The bottom line, it was all about work ethic, and it's very interesting as he's got a 4-part book series to bring it up, and he was just talking a little bit, Carol Ann, about some of the ways that people around him would work. A lot of it was in the automotive industry of just different things, cutting corners, and at the end of the day saying, I'm here to collect the paycheck. That's it. And hey, that's sometimes how that goes. But it's nonetheless got a variety. You can get into anything. If you open that can of worms about work ethic, you can slide into everything. You can slide into politics. You can slide into gender pay gap. You can slide into what else? Just the class, upper, middle, lower, the top 1%, the other 99. A whole plethora of worms there. You can catch any fish with the variety of worms that come out of that can. But nonetheless, as we move from that into Tuesday, which everybody's looking forward to, it's now time for In the Garden with Ann Baldwin, as we're going to talk about, regardless of work ethic or not, and you may be questioning yours right now when it comes to gardening. You're like, listen, I have not done enough, and my patio, the plants around it are sagging, and that's because my work ethic this weekend was pretty much have the hot seltzer and the hot dogs and eat myself silly and go to the beach. But at the end of it, you realize that maybe my plants need a little bit more TLC and attention. But that's what we got you here for, Carol Ann. In the Garden with Carol Ann. Nice little segue.
And we come in here. We come in here too to chill out.
That's right.
We go in the garden to chill out.
That's right. In the garden to chill.
We used to have the garden party.
Exactly.
And so
with that, I want to say happy late Memorial Day. I hope you got to enjoy what was a 3-day weekend that I think most people needed.
I had yesterday off.
You had yesterday off? You had to work most of the weekend. I know.
But unless you're in some of those independent industries, you work the weekend, or you're not back to work yet.
Right.
So,
And nonetheless, I think I'm going to say this here. It's going on record because everything I say on radio is record because we're streaming live, YouTube live,
and it's all recorded.
Is the idea that I think it was driving around this weekend around town. Everybody was out. The one shopping center that's over here. It's really not huge when it comes to like big name shopping. There's just some shops in there.
Right.
Whole parking lot packed.
Filled.
When you looked at some other places, people were out and about this weekend, and I think they're a little bit over what we've been going through, and this was the opportunity to get out there again.
Right. Yeah. And some people maybe have been back to work just a couple weeks now, and so they're collecting their actual paycheck, whatever, and things are a semblance of normalcy. A holiday weekend that is, even though in Florida we've been ushering in summer for months, it is that opening into the summer season, and everybody just be careful, use your caution and common sense. That's what I always say on going out and feel you do to your comfort level. Just because they open the state and this and that doesn't mean you have to. Right. You don't have to run out there if you're not comfortable.
And I've been kind of caught up in where I'm at with where I'm at with this and the people that I talk to. But I did find out being around this weekend that there's a lot of other people who feel that it's hey, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to which is fine, which is absolutely fine. But at the end of the day, I feel we need to get back to work. We need to get back out there, and we're starting to. And this was the weekend that says, okay, here's your kickoff to summer.
Right.
Here's that hot weather. A little bit of rainy yesterday.
Had some rain. Kind of messed with a little bit of what I was going to do for the day, but that's okay.
Yep.
It's I took a day and chilled.
Took a day and chilled, and we did the same. I felt it was, man, it's a weekend I needed. I felt Friday was fun. My girl and I got to go out on a date. That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
So we got somebody to watch baby boy for a little bit. So we went and had dinner. That was nice. It was all in the process of kind of charging the batteries, if you will, kind of getting back to the opportunity to, you know how sometimes you go through and you have, and what I do is conversations with all these different people all week long from my two jobs, one here at the radio station, which is talk radio, to getting into the flight school, talking about there. And then at the end of the day, you realize, man, I haven't had time to just have conversation with the people closest to me.
Right.
And actually, at the end of the day, I love you, girl, but at the end of the day, I'd rather hear their opinions more often than some of the opinions that I hear.
Most definitely.
But that was part of recharging the batteries.
What her day has gone.
And what she thinks and feels about stuff. So that was Friday, and that was a late night Friday leading into Saturday where it was just laying around chilling. And then Sunday got me a little anxious because I was thinking to myself, there's only one more day.
One more day of the weekend.
One more day of the weekend. And it was like, well, hold on, you're right in the middle of it. Relax. And then I woke up Monday. I think I needed some sleep, and I woke up Monday, and I felt just completely refreshed, and we had a great day yesterday. The weather wasn't great. It kind of put a damper on my plans, but we were still able to get out to the airport. I got to show my 2-year-old son the airplanes a little bit. We got to do a little bit of that. We were out in the back patio a little bit, and that's where I was segueing into, even though it was a little bit rainy yesterday, there was still a little bit to enjoy just simply back there on the back patio with our flowers and trees, and that's where you come in. So with anybody who's got any questions whatsoever on what they can do, especially with now the rainy season starting.
It
does
here. Seem like it is starting, watching what's going on. It's looks like we've got some. Now, we really didn't, I don't know, I didn't feel like I got that much, even though the rain gauge said I did get rain. It was just like, I guess it came in different bursts or something like that, or I just missed it, didn't hear it.
And if you were watching the radar, or if you were watching the weather that had radar, you're thinking, oh man, we're going to get it. And then it would get here and kind of fizzle out, but sometimes you get some.
Most of it was in that South Florida section. I mean, you'll watch the news this morning and see the flooding they had in Miami.
Yeah, that's true.
A foot of rain down there. So,
right.
That kind of thing. And I guess they've been getting some rain down further South Florida, unlike us, where we're still under a voluntary burn ban, and things like that. I mean, when the rains start to increase, and that just means everything's just that dry. Our humidity levels, we've had, though temperatures high, we've had some wonderful weather.
We really have.
I mean, it might be that it's been in the 80s. I mean, now, yes, when was that? End of last week. Yeah, it was, because it was Friday, I think it was. I spent 2.5 hours standing in the sun receiving plants. Going, I wish I was wearing long sleeves to keep from getting fried. Yeah. But, I mean, and the heat indices were way up.
Yes.
Because humidity was up. But before that, we've been having some fairly mild humidity, so even those upper 80s have been pleasant. Nice breeze blowing. If you were in a shaded area, had your umbrella on the porch or out in the garden, we were doing good. So, I mean, here we are, the end of May. We're coming into the hotter part of the year. June's usually okay. It's July, August, September, the dog days of summer that are coming forward.
Yep.
So right now we're looking at, we're maintaining the garden with our summer flowers. Some of the vegetables, we're harvesting our tomatoes, our squash, our cucumbers, all that good fresh vegetables. I think flea markets and farmers markets are getting open back up.
Yep.
So if you yourself don't vegetable garden, but you like to partake in all that wonderful produce that is local. I mean, we have great growing here, even in Central Florida, the Zellwood corn, the fresh Florida corn, the Florida watermelons. If probably here this weekend, people had some of both of that, fresh tomatoes, cucumbers, all the squash, and like I said, the farmers markets are open back up. Take advantage of that. I know some people who spent the last few weeks where they were able to go probably over to like Tampa or some of the other bigger places where they were buying the cases of stuff, and they were making jams and jellies in order to actually to sell for a little bit of extra income because are still out of work.
Yeah.
And their businesses are just now beginning to reopen.
Right.
And so.
For Memorial Day, we decided to do a little traditionally. I got the gourmet hot dogs, and we had corn on the cob. It was the Florida corn.
Yeah.
Made it a point to get that, the bicolored corn. Absolutely delicious.
Oh, yeah.
And a watermelon. So we had watermelon, blueberries, corn.
Oh, yeah, just that whole thing that says Memorial Day, and it also says I'm here in Central Florida and eating well.
That's right.
So.
You mentioned that the heat index being higher, a big part of that, too. We heard last week with the weekend coming up, they were warning on the news if you're going to be out there at the beach. The UV index was pretty high, too.
Yeah.
Now, it's not going to be as much this week with a lot of the cloud cover and stuff, but it's always still sneakishly there.
It actually, when we have cloud cover, or maybe not quite as bad as today, you'd be surprised how burned you'll get because the temperatures aren't up there.
Right.
And so you're running around, you're doing this and that, you're not thinking about reapplying that sunscreen or even putting it on the first place.
Exactly.
And you find yourself getting overexposure. I mean, I had to break out my hat, and I did last week. I was wearing the long sleeve SPF shirts because it's kind of hard to keep going back and putting sunscreen on.
Sure.
A hat for the cover the face because my nose was peeling.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like that. So take advantage. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water.
Right.
And water. I say water number one. And I used to be. People who know me 20 years ago know that I used to have a can of Coca-Cola in my hand all the time. Now it's water. Iced tea, lemonade, those are okay. Your sodas are dehydrating.
Yeah.
I like a cold beer when I'm done, but they too can be dehydrating if you're out there. So if you're doing, have some water in between those kind of things. Drink a glass of water. I think they tell you if you keep a cool thing, like a couple of ounces of water about every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Will actually keep you hydrated. And if you're outside with the kids, I don't know if there's too many of the T-shirts nowadays, but I remember when my grandson was little, even when my daughter was a kid, the front T-shirts, they got their action figures and stuff on them. If they're that vinyl, those shirts aren't breathing.
Right.
They're not allowing some of that heat to come away from the body. So
makes
make them get overheated a little quicker. So keep an eye on the little ones because they don't know.
Yeah.
They're out there playing. We're having a good time. We've got maybe the sprinkler on. You got the little kiddie pool, whatever. Watch that they're not, getting overheated out there in the garden.
Yeah.
And one way to, if you are working in the garden and we are still low on water, if you're pulling weeds or whatever, you got the oscillating sprinkler or something like that. Just put that on while you're doing. You will be watering your garden and cooling yourself down at the same time. So you can do double duty there. And if it's, the water's a little cool, but it's does a double duty. It's
that's just like we said, that's part of what we're getting into with the season obviously being more warm, and we're expecting temperatures to only get up to the mid 80s today, but for the rest of the week they're going to get in the 90s, that's for sure. We got a caller on the air. Good morning, WOCA. You're on the air with In the Garden with Ann Baldwin.
Good morning.
Morning,
Adam.
Hey, Sonny.
Carol.
Yeah.
Friday was a hot one.
Yeah.
I have the indoor or outdoor thermometer in my car.
Okay, yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. It kept reading 100.
Yeah.
I figured, well, I'm in the parking lot and so on and so forth. I'm getting ready to, do my thing. But once I got on the road, it still kept reading 100.
Yeah.
It was hot.
It was.
The other thing that I believe contributes a whole lot to our temperatures just because of the radiation is the sun.
The solar flares. Yep.
A 12, which is considered very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
to me, everybody talks about global warming, but I honestly believe it's the sun causing it.
Well, it's a cyclic activity. Like you said, we've talked about the solar flares, and they come in cycles throughout. I mean, we haven't studied them as much as we should to learn more about it, but it does. It affects temperatures. It affects all kinds of different things. It affects radio signal, at times.
It heats up oceans in certain areas, and I think they're having a slight problem in the Pacific Ocean because of the water being heated up. It's starting to change some of the major currents that rotate in the oceans. We have them here. It's called the
jet stream,
the Gulf Stream,
the Gulf Stream, and
Gulf Stream actually goes up and hits parts of Ireland and Scotland.
Yeah.
Hard to believe,
right.
but
yeah, that's when those hurricanes decide, leave our area and head up into those northern shipping areas.
And that low pressure just kind of
pushes
kicks
it,
over there.
And they have the El Niños and the La Niña.
So when you're out there, I got a severe sunburn on my neck. I had a hat on, but it wasn't one of those
that didn't have the neck,
trim all around.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
It's getting weird. Have a great day. Thank you for
You
the
too.
programming, WOCA, and thank you, Adam, and thank you, Carol Ann, for being on the air with us.
Thank you for being one of our trusted listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, partner. Appreciate that. Yeah, and with that, I think that's what kind of made me spark the conversation of it. It's definitely you could feel it. Yes, like last week to this week, yesterday with the rain. It's we're in a midst of a changing of a season, and now that heat increase and all that stuff. Now we're looking at a little bit more of the wet weather with that. So what that means, a lot more humidity, which is that difference in feeling like, it's been 80s, but now it's like, man, it's mid to upper 80s, and it's heavy.
And the humidity is up at those upper ranges. That makes the air just feel heavier, feel stickier. You step out of the door from the air-conditioned building and go, take your breath away, kind of thing. So, do be careful with it when you're out and about. And
Now, as we've got a few minutes left before the bottom of the 9 o'clock hour. If you have any other questions, give us a call, 622-9622. I got a little question for you when we come back from break, because that'll be a topic to kind of get into a little bit now with the rain and stuff like that. But as we've moved to this now with like the rainier season, going a little bit about what Sonny was talking about there, is it's been mentioned for a couple months now that we were a little bit warmer in the Atlantic and the Gulf this time of year than usual, which to be honest with you, a lot of the rain we're getting is a little unorganized system that's come up from the south. And it's kind of odd, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of the winds are kind of coming from the east. Eventually that'll change this week. So it's bringing a lot of that moisture right off the Atlantic, and that's how it's kind of feeding a little bit. So with that being said, there's an expectation, we've already talked about it or mentioned it before, that we're expected to have a higher hurricane or active hurricane season. Like we said, though, is if they're going to be organized, let's not them hit the land that we're at right now. But at the same time, too, when I hear, and I mean this now, after being in Florida now 10 years, living in the Panhandle, and the expectation of what comes over to Gulf, and mind you, when over in Pensacola area, and you might have to fact check me on this one, but I've heard this for years. I looked it up at one point. It might have changed now, but one of the rainiest places in the country, everybody assumes like Seattle. Right. One of the rainiest places in the country is Mobile, Alabama. And the reason for that is where you have the Mississippi Delta and everything from the Gulf of Mexico kind of streamlining and coming through. The frontal bounds, or the low pressure, kind of starts in the Midwest, draws up moisture that begins right there in Houston and comes over and then just starts pouring rain near Mobile, and we get a little bit in Pensacola and stuff like this. So at the end of the day, though, when I hear active hurricane season, I do think to myself, okay, we're going to have a chance for a lot of rain this season. It's not always the negative. I know what we're thinking. We're thinking, my God, category 3, 4, and 5. But what I'm thinking
just means more storms.
Right, and what I'm thinking about that with is the opportunity. Sometimes with more storms, you have a more opportunity for days of rain that usually then pull out humidity until it develops again. Right.
That we end up actually a lot of times, or if they miss us.
Yes.
Here in Central Florida, we have gorgeous weather because it pulls all that moisture away.
Yes.
And I mean, I've seen sometimes in that September where it's missed us, and it's actually been cool.
Yeah, the humidity's so far down.
Because your temperatures are dropping to those low 80s. That humidity gets down into that 55, 60%. And you go, wow, I could put a sweater on.
Yeah.
People are looking at you going, really?
Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, the coastal areas over there are getting hammered with a category something. I know. So. And that's the interesting thing. So, of course, as we're talking about gardening, of course, we talk about weather.
Right.
It's one of my fun things to talk about as being a pilot. Everybody knows that. Galen knows that. He's probably turned it off already, being like, good Lord, how much weather can you
it's
talk
Mr.
about?
Weather Channel here.
But, that's the beautiful part about this. It's the distraction. It's the opportunity to talk something else besides the politics and COVID-19 stuff. But with that being said, we made it ourselves to the bottom of the 9 o'clock hour. And as doing so, we've got a little bit to talk about that I know I want to bring up when we come back from the break, Carol Ann.
Yep.
And for anybody else who's got any question, comments, or facts of life in their patio or backyard with some of the plants, vegetables, flowers, or trees that you're growing, give Carol Ann a call. Any advice you need, give her a call, 622-9622, and hopefully get it answered for you. And if anything, if you got a general topic that you want to bring up yourself, other than the weather that we've been talking about for so much, let us know too. There's nothing wrong with giving us a call and throwing out a little potpourri item for topic, because we would love to run with anything. So give us a call, 622-9622, in the garden with Carol Ann, WOCA Ocala. We'll be back right after this.
News. I'm Chris Foster. A travel ban for Brazil takes effect at midnight. Only the U.S. has more confirmed coronavirus cases.
Non-citizens will be banned from entering the U.S. if they were in the country in the prior 2 weeks. Green card holders, close relatives of U.S. citizens, and airline workers are exempt. Brazil's president has been urging the country's governors to reopen for business and lift stay-at-home orders.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, a Democrat, says he's working with the National Republican Party on plans for their convention in Charlotte. President Trump's threatening to move it. Concerned coronavirus restrictions would prevent full occupancy. RNC spokeswoman Liz Harrington tells Fox,
"It takes months to plan an event like this, and we already have staff on the ground there, and the fact remains we need assurances from Governor Cooper that we can hold this event as planned."
The convention is scheduled to start August 24th. America's listening to Fox News.
As a pro, saving time and money is your first priority. Lowe's can help you save both. Shop on Lowe'sForPros.com and get free standard shipping on qualifying orders of $45 or more. You'll find the brands you trust and can order on the job site or in the truck from any device. Need something in a hurry? Make a quick trip to Lowe's. We're open at 6 a.m. and offer curbside pickup, so you can get what you need and get on your way. Lowe's, here to help you save time and money. Applies to eligible items only. Contiguous U.S. only. Restrictions apply. See Lowe'sForPros.com for details.
I've always wanted to learn another language, so I decided to give Babbel a try, and I really like the teaching method of the app. I started with the beginner lesson on Babbel, and soon you're putting words into a conversation. Each lesson takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and they're all really different, which keeps things interesting. I can't wait to use my Spanish skills in real life. Dos cervezas, por favor.
Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com or download the Babbel app. That's BABBEL.com.
New book. From the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
WOCA.
Ocala. It's time for Farm and Ranch headlines on the Southeast AgNet. I'm Darren Spearman reporting. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue has announced the details of the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or CFAP, which will provide $16 billion in direct payments to deliver relief to the farmers impacted by the pandemic. In addition to this direct payment, the farmers and ranchers, they'll have a USDA's Farmers to Families Food Box program. It's partnered with regional and local distributors whose workforces have been impacted by the closure of restaurants and hotels and other food service areas. They're going to purchase $3 billion in fresh produce, dairy, and meat and deliver boxes to Americans in need.
Intervals of clouds and sunshine for today, though a shower or thunderstorm will be around for the afternoon. Some thunderstorms could be heavy. We'll have a high today getting up to 84 to 88. Then tonight, mostly cloudy, low 71 to 73. Humid tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sunshine throughout the day. Wednesday with a high 87 to 91. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Kevin Snyder.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Help prevent the spread of germs. Wash your hands with soap and hot water for at least 20 seconds and always wash before you touch your face, eat, or drink. Use hand sanitizers. Limit sharing of eating utensils. Practice social distancing and avoid physical contact. Sneeze or cough into a tissue or the inside of your elbow. Avoid contact with ill individuals. An ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. Download the free booklet at Scientology.org/stay well.
On this episode of What Not to Do, brought to you by
Mike's Got Plumbing. If water runs through it, we do it.
Holy what have you done in my kitchen?
Oh, honey, how is it? I never know when she's coming home.
What are all these pipes laying around? Why is my dishwasher in the living room, and why is the carpet all wet?
Well, remember that fancy new kitchen remodel you've always wanted?
Oh, I do, and this is not it.
But I thought I might save some money by doing it myself.
You thought wrong. I promise this is going to cost you way more. You should have called in the professionals at Mike's Got Plumbing, because I'm pretty sure when I flush the toilet, water is not supposed to come out of the sink.
Noticed that, did you?
The next thing I'm going to notice is you calling Mike's Got Plumbing like you should have done in the first place.
Yes, dear. 866-314-4443.
Yes, 866-314-4443.
That played out so differently in my head. On next week's episode of What Not to Do.
No, not monkeys.
On May 26th at 10:50, Adam's guest will be Sam Ness, author and performer of the song Forgiveness. Sam has teamed up with the International Forgiveness Institute to produce a therapeutic music discussion video, which is available at no cost on YouTube and IFI's website. Again, that's 10:50 a.m. on the 26th. Everyone needs a little forgiveness in their lives. Listen. Be inspired. It's news you can use from IFI and your friends at WOCA, The Source.
WOCA.
Sound means we're back from our break with In the Garden with Ann Baldwin in the studio, as we've been talking for the first half hour there a lot about weather, but that's because it's the changing of the season and we're moving into more of a wet season, and we're moving into more humidity, which means more hot or what I call intolerable weather. as we come back from break, we do have a caller on the air. Thanks for waiting. WOCA, you are In the Garden with Ann Baldwin. WOCA, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Oh, I'm on the air?
Yeah. Yes.
I would like to say a personal thank you to Carol Ann. All her knowledge with all the plants and all the gardening and everything that she does. I'm a friend of hers, Wheelchair Dave, and getting ready to head back to Georgia, and just want to say God bless, and got to get out of this heat.
All righty. Well, you be safe on your trip back, and hey, you can listen online.
That's right, streaming live, YouTube
doing it
live.
Right now. I got you dialed in and everything, and we'll see you come Christmas time.
All right, sounds good, Dave.
Take care and enjoy the summer.
All righty, thank you. I will.
Thanks, partner. That's pretty good. A little shout out to you.
There we go.
Nice.
And see, we do have, and you can listen if you're out of town on vacation, wherever.
Absolutely.
You can always still tune in.
That's right. Streaming live, YouTube live, WOCA, The Source Radio. As that's become bigger and bigger now. I know we do radio, and I think that's the old-fashioned in us. But with the streaming, with the YouTube, it's just like a podcast. And I was telling Joe the other day, podcast, that's something you do that's streamed. That's later on being able to use later. It's pretty much what we do, but it's the opportunity for anybody.
And I think a lot of that now, with everybody being home, it's some of that's becoming more and more commonplace than it was even 6 months ago.
Even 6 months ago, which is a good thing. So with that, as we're moving through here, like I said, Carol Ann, I've got a little bit of the. This one comes from Dan. This is good though.
Okay.
In the midst of all the rain,
right?
There's an expectation of having a lot of maybe Well, it depends on the undulation of your yard, of the area, and such, that you could have some erosion.
Yes.
So with that, and we know steeper banks and stuff like that, with sand, that's usually easier washed away, especially with some of our big rain downpours. Yeah. The big one here is, he was asking, is do pine trees or what other kind of trees could offer any good ground hill control that would keep from the slope eroding away? Now, sometimes you hear about, and this is maybe going back up north a little bit, and you hear about certain trees that can give good strong roots, certain plants or certain types of grass to keep things from eroding.
I think more of ground cover kind of plants on those kind of things, like the junipers. If you've ever tried to dig up junipers, you know the root system on those is going to be, one that's got a structure that's going to hold it in. And if you're on a serious slope that makes it difficult to mow, that you don't want to put turf grass, or it ends up that slope is very shaded or something, for some reason you don't want to put grass there. Look at your ground covers. If you can put turf if you want. Don't have to. Junipers are probably. I recommended these to a customer the other day with an area that was kept running off on them, and I said, do it that, or even ornamental grasses. Or another one. Some of your taller grasses, your muley grass, your fountain grasses, things like that, usually have a really dense root system that's going to help control erosion. You can do the sunshine mimosa. That's a ground cover I can speak. Mimosa. It's a little bit of a perennial kind of thing, so it may get some damage during the cold weather. But usually our rainy season isn't happening in the colder weather, so we can do those. Beach sunflowers, another one that's a great plant. If it's those are hence beach. Grows in sandy soil, grows at our beaches, helping to hold some of the soils in place. Right. So there's quite a few different, plants you can put depending on where you're at. If you have something a little more shaded, something like the liriopes and things like that, that's a little bit more shade. Liriope, Aztec grass, the monkey grass, the mondo grasses, the dwarf mondo grasses.
And I was going to say, like you mentioned, shaded areas, and I know what he's getting after here as far as because I'm picturing his drive, and it's a bigger downslope, and he's thinking about when it rains, watches a little bit. So here's where it comes down to shade, sand, and the cheapest. What would be the cheapest? What would be the cheapest plant? So of all the stuff you mentioned, what would be the cheapest way as far as, because you're covering? Because I picture him covering a really large area.
Right, and possibly actually
maybe about 2,000 square feet.
Probably like ground cover jasmine.
Okay.
Is also another one, and that's just going to it becomes a mat.
Yeah.
Is what that does. Everybody goes, oh, jasmine, it's going to climb. No, it's going to lay up and it's going to fall over.
Okay.
And as it does fall on itself, those pieces all take root.
Yeah.
And you can a lot of times find those. You may have to, you're probably not going to get them in the big box store, but your independent nurseries where you can actually order like plugs. Instead of grass plugs, these are like little 3 to 4 inch pieces to where you can buy quantity.
Interesting.
The smaller pieces.
Yeah.
But if you've added some, at least a little bit of compost, something like that to get them a start, little bit of irrigation to them, you got to, any plant you plant, you have to water. And I know when you're losing, when you have a slope, you're worried because every time you put water on it, it's trying to come down.
But
it might even be the type of thing of trying to see if you can terrace it to slow some of that water down.
Yeah. Almost changing that
grade of putting either with like a permanent hardscape block work worked in there, and it doesn't just have to be straight line. You could take and make little things where you could plant plants, shrubberies and things like that to help soften that or to hide it. Railroad ties, again, your big box stores aren't going to sell them, but you can probably find them at some bigger landscape supply places.
Okay.
Where you can, tuck them in, and usually not hugely expensive as far as I know.
And now he mentioned, so like if you already have something like a pine that's in that area, what would be the, how did he put it? What would happen if you were to remove some trees? Because you're thinking you want to, take away some of the grade, and you want to lay some of the, like we said, the jasmine, all that kind of stuff. What if you got trees in there? and
you need to thin some of that so you're getting more light.
Would that be worth it, kind of taking those trees out?
Well, yeah, it's going to allow some more light, allow you a better option on what you can do.
Yeah.
And if it is something like you've got them very close together, it's going to benefit those that remain.
Okay.
Because they will be able to take up more water. Usually established trees, you're not looking at necessarily putting fertilization down. They can feed on their own. They usually get what they need from the dropping leaves that deteriorate and break down and feed them. I mean, you figure God, nature, your higher power, never put somebody down here with a little spreader and a bag of fertilizer. It was set up that the rain came down, that the tree grew in the spring, summer, it began to slack off and fall. It would drop leaves who would decompose, feeding said tree, and cycle starts all over. There was never anybody put down with a spreader. And
God said, let Kowalski spread the feed and the fertilizer all over thy land.
Rake up the leaves and throw them away and come back with a granular. No, it's not the way it was done.
Exactly.
So, I mean, usually we're not having to worry about that, but they will have better opportunity to take up what nutrition is there, the moisture that's there, if you were to be removing a few trees and offering some space. And sometimes, too, if remove a few trees, you open it up, you plant some shrubbery, which, again, their root system, I think, is a little more on your surface versus your deep. Your trees usually have a lot deeper, a big tap root down that, holds them up. Your shrubbery in that holds more of your soil in place.
Taproot. That's a good old metal band back in the day.
Taproot.
We do have a caller on the air. Thank you for waiting. WOCA, you're in the garden with Ann Baldwin. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Sonny again.
Hey, Sonny.
One time I called up not too long ago about the aeration of the lawn.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that to tell you what kind of grass I got, you name it, it's there.
Just okay. It's green, you mow it. Yeah, if it's green, you mow it.
And as long as I don't start seeing blue or yellow flowers, it's good enough for me.
There you go.
Anyway, what I was getting at is you get this thatch on your lawn. People, you got thatch rakes and everything else to help pull it out so that the ground can breathe and, where the water can go into where the roots are.
Right.
So my way of thinking is aeration is the way to go. I got a spike, it's like a spike. It's not that little tubes type of aerator.
Right.
You just hold it around, and make sure that you break that thatch up a little bit so that when it does rain, the water will soak into the soil.
Yeah, it helps it to get past there. Yeah, and I mean, you can help to prevent the thatch layer by mowing more, properly, that if you have to go away, make sure you got somebody who's going to come by and mow your grass so that you don't come back and mow off 2 inches of grass. So mowing the smaller and with the new mulching blades, usually I think thatch issues should be less than what they were 5 or 10 years ago, but the aeration a few times a year, even with our sandy soil, is is probably going to be something, especially if you're trying to get a nice lawn to keep that lawn healthy.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good idea.
That's what I was getting at, because I didn't mention that when I called about the aeration. It does penetrate the thatch, and when you do that, it also helps to naturally dispose of the thatch, where if it's just laying there, and it becomes a undercarpet.
Right.
But anyway, thanks again for all your programming and information.
Sure.
Thanks, Sonny.
Yeah, that's with your lawn and that. That's the whole thing of proper mowing heights, proper fertilization, proper irrigation. All of those work in conjunction for a healthy lawn. And if we don't, even though we have sandy soil, nobody thinks of compaction in sand.
Right.
They think, I have sand, the water runs through it. Sometimes it runs off, especially if we have been dry.
Yes.
It can't soak in yet. I mean, you can do a little thing if you ever, as a child, played in a sandbox and you got the little watering can full of water and you poured the water in and it just ran off the top and you couldn't ever get it to mix in. Same thing happens in your lawn, and that's what he's saying is with that aeration, helps that water get down in there. And it does break up some thatch layer and that. But if you're mowing, if you're mowing at the correct height, nice sharp blade. And like I said, I think most mowers sold today have a mulching blade.
Right.
Type of thing. So it's the angle, it's how small of a particle you put back down on the ground is how quickly that's going to break down and not cause thatch, but feed the lawn.
Right.
Not over fertilizing. Don't think, well, I put a weed and feed down in March and that 3 or 4 weeks later you need to put a fertilizer. No, weed and feed, optimum word there, feed is fertilizer.
Yeah.
So it's a timing. You want to look for slower release fertilizers if you can. They are on the market. They are not excessively priced.
Yeah.
So the better the slow release, the better for the lawn. And I'm surprised, I still have folks that come through where a gentleman the other day going, hey, I need a spreader and I need a bag of 666 fertilizer. I said, here's the spreader. Where are you using the fertilizer?
Yeah.
I said, because it's not for your lawn. He says, well, where would you use that? I said, on my trees, shrubs, vegetables, and flowers. And he looked at me and says, this is Florida. We don't have the same soil conditions. We don't have the same growing conditions. Our lawn fertilizers over on this side have a higher nitrogen than maybe what you might use up north because we need that a little more, but we have no phosphate in it. We remove that. But even our nitrogen source is coated. It's slower release than what it would be up north because of the sandy soil. You put it down on, say you were off this holiday weekend, or maybe you've been off for the last 6 weeks. They say, oh, I need to fertilize. And then we had the heavy rain yesterday.
Yes.
If your fertilizer's not a slow release, where's your fertilizer?
Yeah, just wash that.
and you don't want to do fertilization, pest control, any of those items, thinking I'm going to use the upcoming rain to activate that. Mm-hmm. Reading your packaging, it tells you to turn your sprinkler system on. Don't wait, because you can put down 1/4 inch of water. We don't know what that rain cloud's going to put down. It might not put 1/8.
Yeah.
You might get skipped, or you could get 2 inches, and where's your fertilizer or pest control, but past the root system, or one time had a friend, fellow master gardener, so he knew better, who did a wonderful weed and feed job on his neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
Because he put his fertilizer down, it rained that afternoon, and
Just
took it
washed
right
right
on
into
down
his-
to his neighbor's, and his neighbor didn't have any weeds.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got rid of the weeds in the neighbor's yard, fed the neighbor's yard real nice and that. But he then was, but again, you put that down. You're not supposed to put it down again.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how much might have stayed around.
That's pretty
So
he's getting the weeds, but he's putting down the fertilizer.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kowalski's coming out and he's going, man, my lawn looks great, and I haven't done a thing. Haven't done a thing, Chuck.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, man. It looks great.
Haven't done a thing. I don't know. It's just, maybe the layer of topsoil I had here from years ago.
Right, from years ago. So it's doing a really good job. And that's another thing we can do here in spring. If you're trying not to put those fertilizations down, there are... I don't necessarily recommend topsoil, only because topsoil is not screened for weed seed.
Right.
And so why bring a weed problem in?
Right.
I find topsoil is good to fill a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the mower sunk down in there, okay, you need a little more dirt than that. But even then, you're filling that a little at a time. Otherwise, you're not going to have any grass in that spot.
Right, because it
can't come through. Yeah. But top dressing, once, even maybe twice a year with 1/8 inch of compost, of manure. There's fancy lawn soils out there now, those kind of things, or even just something simple like a Milorganite or the Florida Natural, same type of product. And those kind of things aren't throwing a bunch of nitrogen on the ground. They're not throwing it. They're just natural. They cover up those rhizomes. Our grasses have those rhizomes that get exposed, and it covers up some of that thatch, helping to break that down.
And you mentioned the nitrogen. A big part of this time of year is we have afternoon thunderstorms. So you're getting an excessive amount of that nitrogen from the lightning and all those particles in the air that are statically charged,
the
and all that.
ionized water that's coming down. And each time you mow, that green blade being put on the ground is a nitrogen source.
Exactly.
So we don't that's why we look for those slow releases.
So is it completely out of the question then? Are we past the point of fertilizing now in the time of year?
If you need to put one down, get it down now.
Okay.
Get it down now in the next.
When's the bingo
usually
time?
we try to stop
cutoff?
by June. When this rainy season starts. So get it down within this week, or maybe by the end of next weekend, this coming weekend. This coming weekend. It's Tuesday. I'm trying to look and go, wait a minute, what day is it? I think we've all had that problem. But get that done now. And then it's in the summertime, because we get those excessive rains. If you find the yard starts to look puny, because of the extra rain, that's when we throw an iron source on. And simply iron will green the grass without causing it to grow. The rain and the hot weather are going to cause it to grow well enough. So
yes, because we all know, and then talking about the lawn, I think a lot of people are thinking to themselves right now, you're like, oh no, I get this time of season. I don't get out there because it's raining in the afternoon when I'm home from work to be able to mow the lawn. I go 2 days, it storms in the afternoon and rains. I miss my window. Now it comes time for Saturday. I have time to do it. Oh, and guess what? It's a mile high.
That's right. And when it does that, then you almost need to mow it twice.
Okay, yes, because if we're talking about, like he mentioned, the thatch, you want to cut it again.
Right. St. Augustine lawns come this time of year, or as the rainy season comes in, need to be mowed 2, maybe 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Which can be a lot, on somebody. But if you've got a good rod, again, sharp blade.
Right.
Makes that mowing, and I know a lot of people go, oh, they come through the neighborhood and they, but those are sharp blades, and yes, they are fast mowers. Those blades are moving, quick.
They're whipping.
So if you're not happy with that, get out there, mow it yourself, and do those kind of things.
And it's not bad. That's actually a really good precursor to everything we've talked about, weather kind of going with the changing season, now becoming more wet. So people are looking at, I always mention trees, flowers, and plants, but at the end of the day, the lawn's the biggest one to take care of, because we know we got to get out there and mow it. So here you go. The idea is, this is probably your bingo time this week or window to get the whatever fertilizer you want left in there.
Fertilization for the warm season.
Right.
Yeah, we'll kick that back up in September.
Yes. And the idea of thinking about what's going to be necessary coming into it, as we're expecting for the weekend, we're expecting after tomorrow 70% on Thursday into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's probably going to stay consistent for a little while. So what that means is what's going to happen then as the grass starts to grow, especially if you got in the fertilizer this week, you're going to see some change with some growth come next week this time for sure.
And the grass is going to green up. It's not going to look puny anymore. And this year, this year took a while. We had a dry winter.
We did.
So and a very dry spring, which is not uncommon for us. So it's we have to be a little patient with it.
Exactly, and then that's where it comes down to. This is your last week to maybe fertilize, and then get those blades sharpened. If you got your own, get them sharpened. And it's not like we said. If it comes to a point where you get the opportunity to not mow till the weekend and it's pretty high, maybe mowing twice is the necessary
thing.
Go
across it one direction, come back across.
Sonny, you mentioned a good one there with the idea that thatch. If it's going to happen to where you're only mowing that once, you're going to lay down quite a bit.
You'll see. I mean, and you may need to rake it, or you may need to collect it. That would be about the only way, because we try to say no more than 1/3 of that blade at any given time.
Right.
And that's because it's just healthier for the grass blade, because the longer that blade is, then it starts to shade underneath.
Yeah.
And then when you mow it, you're going, ooh, I can see the dirt.
Exactly.
Yeah. So mowing more frequently makes those grass blades closer together. Nice tight lawn. Chokes out the weeds.
Yeah.
hence no need for weed and feed.
Yep.
The better you can do. So yeah, if it's going to be leaving piles of grass, rake them up, collect them, use the bagger. Use that grass clippings, throw them in your compost pile.
Yeah.
Maybe use them to cover up, some add to your flower beds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It will steal some nitrogen temporarily out of those beds, but it'll recover.
And then I guess the other thing would be, as far as what we mentioned with the lawn, about how all that goes and everything. Just one little recap for just in case he wasn't listening, is kind of just reiterating what you mentioned for anybody who has those steeper grades with the anticipation of rainfall. Some of the ideas you had, you mentioned the jasmine,
juniper. If it's a sunny area, the sunshine ligustrum. Not sunshine, sunshine mimosa, and beach sunflower is another one. And if he's clearing some areas out, or ornamental grass type things where you can put clusters in and terracing or tiering out those areas just to change the way some of that water may come down there, just to slow it down.
Right.
Some in those areas, and even just throw it, even if it's temporary, a couple landscape timbers and some mulch in there that's a little heavier, or some stone, just to slow some of that down.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
As we come towards the top of the 10 o'clock hour here, as a lot of good stuff. Boy, we covered a lot.
Cover a lot.
We always do. Yeah, that's how it goes. So for those getting ready in lieu of the wet season, there's a little bit to think about with your lawn. A lot of good stuff there. I'd say number one is get those blades sharpened.
Yeah.
Make sure they're sharp.
That
was always the big thing when I worked at the one airport and I had to mow grass.
Yeah, you look at your grass. If it's getting beat up,
Yeah, we had the bush hog pulled by the 1968 Ford tractor, and we ran jet fuel in that thing, and that's why it lasted so long. But I had to pull the bush hog, and one of the biggest pains in the butt was this time of year. Let's get those blades sharpened.
Yep.
To get my cinder blocks underneath that thing. Yeah. Oh, good Lord. I'm glad I'm in a radio station now. That's for sure. But with that being said, Carol Ann, thank you very much on this Tuesday.
Have a great day.
Great day, and stay tuned as we got more good show for you rolling right along. We're back after this. WOCA Ocala.
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. Some coronavirus restrictions are lifted in more states today. Michael Ryan with the World Health Organization with a reminder.
We may get a second peak in this wave. This happens during pandemics in the past.